Welcome to Discovering True Health, where our goal is to provide you with cutting-edge health information through research, interviews with experts, and personal journeys to true health. Our message is a message of hope and healing, and our mission is to bring you on a journey to discovering true health, to not only find wellness, but to thrive. Hello and welcome to Discovering True Health, your weekly deep dive into health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all our upcoming shows. You can also check out additional information on our website, Instagram, or Facebook. All those links are below. So we've spoken on previous shows how childhood trauma can be detrimental to our health as an adult if not addressed and healed. It can cause major health issues as well as affect our lives in many other ways. Now, I believe that a big part of finding true health is also cultivating a healthy society, and the health of our society starts with our children. So today in Discovering True Health, we're going to be talking about the importance of healing childhood trauma, specifically with the children aging out of the foster care system. Now, there are currently 400,000 children in the foster care system in the US, and more than 23,000 children age out of the foster care system each year in the US at the age of 18. And 20% of those children will be instantly homeless. Now, this is a devastating scenario for a child who has already survived a traumatic childhood, and the lack of resources and help for these children is minimal, leaving them, for the most part, to fend for themselves. So I have a very special guest on with me today to discuss this very important topic, Angela Featherstone. She's an advocate for children in the foster care system and is founder of the Fostering Care Healing School, which is a nonprofit healing school for youth aging out of the foster care system. And their goal is to not only help these children heal, but to thrive in life. She has also mentored a child of her own through the foster care system through Kidsave. And Angela is also a successful model and actress, a pushcart prize nominated essayist and speaker, and she writes and lectures on healing PTSD, child abuse, human trafficking, and intimacy. She was also a consultant on the Netflix documentary Cracked Up that documents the effects of trauma and healing trauma. And she's a very dear friend of mine and kindred spirit. So thank you, Angela, for joining me today. I'm so honored to have you on to discuss such an important topic and also all the impactful work that you're doing around it.
Thanks, Christy. I'm really honored to be here. And you're one of my inspirations. I love Discovering True Health, and it's an honor to be here today. Thank you.
Now, I'd love to start first with learning about your healing school, which is called Fostering Care. Can you share with us an overview of what it is, how it helps children aging out of the foster care system, and what inspired you to create it?
Okay, thank you. An overview of what we have is a 3-month semester, 3 times a year, where children ages 18 to 21, which in the state of California is called, there's a Assembly Bill 12. So children 18 to 21 who used to be having aged out at 18, but now because of Assembly Bill 12, from 18 to 21, you're an AB 12 kid, and you get a monthly stipend from the government it was created to try to put a dent in the statistics of 40% of all youth aging out of foster care become homeless, commit suicide, or go to prison within the first 4 years of aging out. And then the 80 to 90% statistic of over a lifetime become homeless, commit suicide, or go to prison. And so that's our demo. And we offer healing modalities, trauma healing modalities, mandatory 5 days a week. And then the weekends, we have a couple of programs that are optional. We want to create space for them to have their jobs, and or go to school or have whatever else they need to do. So the weekends are optional. But so yes, so just to be super clear, they'll receive a monthly stipend. So when they take part of our program, not only are we getting them at that vital age of exactly when they're aging out of foster care, but we're also getting them when they still have that little shelter of a monthly stipend coming in, so that they're not having to choose between our program and finding a place to sleep that night or finding a meal, for example. Ideally, we're not going to be their only meal, although we do have an amazing lunchtime therapy, culinary therapy program. We won't be their only meal is the idea. So yeah, so basically we're just offering healing modalities for 3 months straight. And then at the end of the 3-month program, they'll also graduate with a teaching certificate in a healing modality. So while they'll have had the opportunity to work on healing their own trauma and learning skills to help them continue to heal their own trauma, like breath work and Kundalini yoga, those are all things you can do on your own to heal trauma. But also they'll be able to get a job and hope in a healing modality, but also hopefully come back to us as we continue to expand and become teachers in our program or some type of leader.
Beautiful. So it's like this full circle. You're healing them through, all the different healing modalities, and then you're training them in the healing modalities. So then they can go and use that as a career and also go and heal others.
Exactly. And I know that there's a saying in Kundalini, I don't know where it comes from, that if you really want to learn something, then you teach it. So I do think that it's very difficult to teach Kundalini yoga and not be practicing it yourself every day. So I think it's also, it's something that will keep them reminded of the healing opportunities that they have that are continuous and ongoing.
Right. And it just deepens that work within themselves as they're teaching it.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to understand that, talking about society and a healthy society and the cycle of abuse, that hurt people. So if we can intervene in these children's lives in their teens and early adult years, this can not only help them as an individual thrive, but also stop the cycle of abuse and create a healthier society as a whole. Can you share more with us kind of about this and the significance around helping these children as they age out of foster care at this critical time?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, what comes up for me when you say that, Christy, is how important creating a safe space is for me. So just to backtrack a little bit, in 2009, I started a really intensive, I was led on this healing path. And so this program is sort of a combination of all of the different healing modalities that I've been doing, but it also includes all of my healers. And I, like many people, certainly people who've survived trauma, was very rigid and protective around my body and around my boundaries and my space. And although I couldn't really communicate it other than perhaps with withdrawing and with rage, when I was led on this path, I was very skeptical at every turn. I was highly, just very, I was a street, even though on the outside I may not have been, on the inside I'm very much, I still am a little bit, but I certainly was then, like, just very street. And so anybody touching my body, like I would test them continuously, and I still do, but in a different, more subtle way. I've come to learn to trust myself, and I've come to cultivate over time a group of people in my life who I love and respect and trust. So I'm bringing that to this because it's so vital that these kids have a safe place to heal. And the integrity and the talent and the safety that these healers have, that I have been blessed to cultivate in my life, and who immediately, within 2 days of having the idea in 2020 for this program, I had all my healers all on board.
Wow. And what types of what are the different healing modalities that are going to be included?
So we have my acupuncturists, not my acupuncturists. I'll refer to them as
Yours.
their own lives.
You'll take ownership of them.
My a brilliant acupuncturist at Poke Acupuncture, Russell Brown. We have one of my Kundalini teachers, Radhajit Kaur, who's also, both Russell and Radhajit are on our board. And I've been practicing Kundalini off and on since 2010, but very seriously and committedly, almost a daily practice, sometimes more than a daily practice, other times a couple times a week since 2019. I really buckled down and got really intense with it. And we also have a wonderful martial art Gatka teacher who's from the Sikh tradition as well. She's brilliant, and I think that martial arts are so important for learning focus and physical agility and strength. And we have, like I mentioned before, Mercedes Tiggs, who's a former foster youth with a whole bunch of degrees, and she's a licensed social worker, and she works down in San Diego with trafficking survivors. I met her at a dinner party, and we bonded immediately. There's like a foster care handshake, but it's not really.
It's inside.
And I love it and adore her. And she's got a wonderful program she's created called culinary therapy that I mentioned earlier, where the kids will learn about nutrition. They'll learn skills in the kitchen that they can take out to get jobs in restaurants or somewhere else. But also she's working with them doing healing therapy. And we have David Elliott breathwork. David Elliott's a highly respected and important breathwork master. And not only will they have his teachings from a practitioner, one of his licensed practitioners, but also he's agreed to come on and be the teacher training certificate that we'll have in the first year. And we have something called counsel. A woman named Iresha has been doing this for a very long time, but I guess it's a sacred tradition of learning. It's like a group where you learn to communicate intimately and authentically in safety. We have another element to my healing that I love is getting my blood work done regularly and seeing where all my vitamins and organs are and my hormones, and getting all of that balanced, because as someone who grew up with having missed a lot of meals, it was easy for me to get hungry, because I didn't always have an income. I didn't always have money for a meal, but also I had those deep triggers of having gone too long without meals as a child, like days and stuff. And so for me, I was living a very affluent life, but when I would get hungry, I would go immediately back to just survival, fight, flight, or freeze. I would become hysterical. Because I didn't eat for like 2 hours, but my brain was getting a signal that I was hungry, which could often mean I might die, right?
Right, fight or flight, yeah.
So much of my healing journey has been about rewiring, or coming to understand those messages between my body and my psyche and my brain, and rewiring them. What needs to be rewired, and then attuning to what just is perfectly fine the way it is. I just need to learn its code. But so yeah, we're gonna have and more. Like, I want to do eventually.
Very mind, body, soul. I mean, it's all encompassing. It's
100%.
Every level of healing.
100%. Yeah, it's so much more. Those are just the brass.
Right.
The brass tacks. We have a lot more coming. I want to bring in, more intimacy and vulnerability. I want to bring in some NLP. I would like to even, and this is something you and I have talked about before, at some point, I would love to have everyone's charts done this first day they arrive.
Yes.
Their astrological charts, so that I can see we can see like what are we working with here? What is, if any, what are the structures that were imprinted on their birth that we can work with?
Right.
The proclivities in some areas of excellence that we
Right.
might miss if we're not looking in the right places. And while, astrology isn't everything, it certainly has helped me. So.
Right. And me too. I mean, knowledge is power. It gives you a good level of knowledge about yourself and where what the energies are in your life currently as well.
100%.
Where
And
you're
to
going.
me, that's saying know thyself. I mean, anything that helps me to learn more about myself and who I am, and especially if we're dealing with people who've been traumatized and criminally neglected,
Yes.
you're not getting any messages that you are interesting or that you are great or that there's an innate wisdom to who you are and what's happening within your body, mind, and soul. And it just needs to be tapped into. Like all of that, I've been blessed to have in my life, but as an adult, and because I sought it out. So
Right.
we're bringing all of that to these kids so that they don't have to waste decades of their lives
Right.
struggling to get somewhere and then having it all crash down because they didn't have the infrastructure or self-awareness.
Absolutely. And you've alluded to this quite a bit in our conversation. You've had this incredible success in your life, but you yourself are also a survivor of a traumatic childhood, which led you to being in the foster care system. And, this is why you can really understand the challenges these kids face and what they need. You've been there yourself. And I think, can you kind of share with us an overview of like a snapshot of your earlier years and your own experience in the foster care system so people can kind of get a better understanding of where these kids are at?
Yeah. And I hope I answered your question about hurt people. I think, just to go back for 1 second, I just think that, I think I said it. You just,
Yeah.
I think I said it. So basically, let's see. What's so interesting is how over time my relationship to my story has changed.
Mhm.
And I really want to honor that because I don't want to go back to an old way of identifying just to serve a purpose or just create a template, because I feel like that would be a disservice. And also I want to be, helpful. And so I think that I was thinking about this earlier today. I was trying to find a way to summarize this. I think that there's so many different types of trauma.
Yeah.
And, you and I have talked before about the trauma Olympics and really wanting to stay out of that. Because, I know people who had seemingly, according to them, perfect childhoods, very loved, beautiful families. But then they were in their 20s and something happened within their marriage that completely devastated them. And they were places that I was from my childhood. And I think too, there's things that can happen. Like there's something I saw when I was about 8 years old at a carnival that on such a deep level affected my life. It was a random thing that happened to someone behind me on a Ferris wheel. But I know to my core that impacted me profoundly and deeply and altered the course of my life. And yet there's, certainly numerous things that I experienced firsthand that almost seem in retrospect, like they were creating a path for me to be where I am today. Like I wouldn't be able to, like to your point, I would not be able to be a foster care advocate in the way that I am if I had not been in foster care. You know, just to summarize, there was a lot of abandonment. There was a lot of criminal, what I would call criminal neglect. There was a lot of physical abuse. There was broken bones. Lots of other, you know, gnarly scenes that if someone had walked in on, it would not have been a comfortable sight for anyone involved. And yet seemingly a few of my parents seemed to go unperturbed by it.
Wow.
So which when I turned 16, my behavior started to escalate. I was in a new school. I was getting suddenly hitting puberty. I was getting a lot of attention. I wanted to wear makeup. I wanted to go on dates. I wanted to wear sexy clothes, all of which were verboten. And so I started to get rebellious. And at home, the stuff at home started to escalate to unconscionable levels. And so I left home. I ran away from home, as I say, preferring to live on the minus 30-degree winter streets of Winnipeg, Manitoba, than stay in that house, which I think says a lot. But, you know, and the thing is that I, as many people do, I thrived for many years after I emancipated myself from foster care. I thrived for many years, but there's always, you know, there's always the suppression, there's always the secrets, there's always the confusion and the not knowing. And for me, I know in a weird way that there was this experience of people thinking I was wonderful and I was kind of famous and very successful and popular. But I always, like, I hated everyone because I thought, you don't even know who I am. Right. You don't even know who I am. And I remember there was like a moment. And I think that this is a pain that a lot of kids from foster care share. There was a moment when I was working for a big fashion magazine and everyone was talking about, they said, oh, we love you. We love Angie. Oh, we love Angie. And I was like, blah, 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 Winnipeg. And they were like, oh, you're from Winnipeg? And I was like, you don't love me. You don't even know where I'm from. You don't even know what city I'm from, much less which life I'm from.
Love the idea of whatever you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, so much of that, one of the things I really want to cultivate is, like I said, such a safe place, such a boundaried, healthy environment for these kids to heal in, where they do feel seen and known and acknowledged, and that they learn to have a voice. Is that it's a two-way street. And I don't think necessarily we're going to achieve that in 3 months, but we're going to start.
Yep. And you're going to give them you'll give them a lot of tools to continue this journey. And I love what you said about how your story, you know, I mean, I have my story, a lot of people have their story, but your story really puts you in this position to help others now. So, and that's how you see it. You don't see it as, you know, this, oh, bad story. This story made you who you are. So now you have this awareness where you can guide these children and really help these children, you know, get through it and not waste a bunch of time. And it reminds me of the saying of a diamond is just a little chunk of coal that did really well under pressure.
It's true, though. It's true. And a lot of these kids are so powerful.
Yes.
They're really special. And they're so in tune. They're so, I do think, not to go too far above my pay grade, but my experience with a lot of these kids has been that this is so shut down and non-existent that it's almost like their crown chakra completely opens up. I have experiences with my kid when he was, you know, in different group homes and stuff, where he would get in the car with me and he would say stuff, and I'm just like, where did you learn that from? How do you know? It's not like there's a physicist sitting in the group home with him. There's like one staff person for 12, 16-year-old boys. He is not getting one-on-one tutoring in quantum physics or anything, but there's a knowing. You know, I do think that when this is, whether it's from physical abuse or neglect or just horrible disregard for human life, the discounting of the soul, there's something inside of you that will survive, that will push through. And that is the thing that a lot of people do, a lot of drugs, or people do a lot of meditation to try to achieve. But it's almost like it's just this thing that happens out of a human will to survive.
Yes.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of my friends who were in foster care have been incredible achievers, very successful people in life. That's not the problem. Problem isn't, do you have what it takes to transform your life from coal to a diamond? The problem is, have you done the inner work so that you can sustain it through life's inevitable ups and downs? For the best person in the world, like for the most blessed, I mean, for the most, for the most endowed at birth, there's ups and downs. When I was having a very difficult time, a very dark night of my life, where I went from Beverly Hills to being homeless, and because I did not have the infrastructure to sustain a couple of very difficult and hard blows that happened, in my career. They weren't superficial. They were horrible events that took place at work. But I started reading biographies. I was an avid reader as a child, and I started reading these biographies of all of these very successful people. And well, they don't make a lot of biographies about people that aren't, but like Ted Turner and great, Katharine Hepburn and people I was interested in. And one thing I thought, I was like, Angie, think, you have to, because I'd never thought that far ahead. I'd only thought to the part where I was going up. I didn't think about on the other side of it. And I was like, you have to figure out what's the key to life? How are you going to get through this horrible time? And I looked at all the biographies and I was like, they all have ups and downs. They all have ups and downs. Every single biography of every single successful person has ups and downs. But we don't in the guy like me who's single-handedly focused on achievement and overcoming, and no one will ever know, then when you get your hit, you have, excuse my language, fuck all.
Yeah. Well, and we don't see that. Like, for example, we see magazine covers, we see the success. We don't see, everybody forgets about the ups and downs.
Well, you see it, but they shame them, Christy.
Yeah.
They shame them.
Yeah.
Alcoholic, working at a Trader Joe's. It's horrible.
Yes.
And that shame, because you already have your own shame. And you don't know where to put it. You don't know where to unpack it because you've never unpacked it. There's never been a safe place to unpack it. That shame, coupled with society's now turned on you and is shaming you. If you're not careful, that can be a deadly blow.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that you made, talking about how, just because you survived a childhood trauma, you can become successful. You can have that grit and be like, and let that anger will take you a very long way. I've experienced that. It will take you a long way. But like you said, if you haven't done the work on yourself and healed, and you don't have those tools, which is what your school is doing for these children, is giving those tools. When a blow comes, you're not going to crumble and break into pieces. You have the tools to, get to the other side of it and figure it out.
100%. You have and I will say it based on my own experiences. You have now some different experiences. You have some history of having released some trauma from your body and your mind. You have some experience of the after effects of that, like self-esteem, self-awareness. Intrinsic to that, to me, is self-love. it's a hop, skip, and a jump between, for me, from self-awareness to self-love. It's just kind of like a natural. It's like when you throw a rock on the water, it's going to skip a couple times. It's inevitable. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the healing process is this journey. And once you start taking some of the first steps, like you said, you take this, you start with astrology and find the self-awareness through astrology. And that leads you to the next little skip, which leads you to the, it's this process.
It's definitely, I mean, for me, I'll just say that the astrology bit only came in the last couple of years through the Kundalini. Most of my healing journey, my healing, I'll do a quick synopsis of my healing journey. So it started, I found a teacher, a great rabbi, and started following him and his, philosophical and wisdom teachings. Rabbi Mordecai Finley at Oratora Temple. He just saw me. He recommended, the first book he recommended was The Soul's Code by James Hillman. And I'd been thinking a lot of different things about my life for a while. And I would tell therapists that I was lucky enough to be able to afford about my ideas, about how I viewed my purpose in life and the things that had happened to me. And often they would be met with sort of confused, sort of like weird looks. And with James Hillman's book, The Soul's Code, exactly detailed how I perceived my life to be. In short, that there was a predetermined destiny that my soul was here to do, and that my parents, for example, I, like anyone rightly would, why was I abandoned? Why did I get these horrible parents? And no one understands the way I do, and it's kind of going like, that's not who I am. Something's not right here. It doesn't add up to who I am as a person. That sounds like a story. That's not how I live my life. That's not how I identify. So what's wrong here? And looking at it and realizing, every single one of my siblings from other marriages all live within a few miles of their parents. And few of them have ever left that idyllic parts of the world. And why would they? I wouldn't either, had I been loved. I never would have left the small towns that I'm from had I been loved and adored and cherished, or even treated well as a child. Right. And I've been all over the world. I've lived all over the world. I have so many stories to tell, and in so many ways. And so realizing, I think that some of this pain that I'm experiencing is because I'm not perceiving my life in its greatest form.
Right. And it's really seeing the silver lining. And yes, there's the pain that happens, but that pain created this beauty on the other side of it, this incredible life that you lived and all these experiences. And it led you to, helping people in ways that you couldn't have helped people if it didn't happen. So yeah, it's this kind of shifting of perspectives and saying, okay, yeah, I have this pain, I have this damage, I have this terrible stuff that I went through, but then look what else happened. And yeah, it's kind of like, what are we focusing on? What are we, which part are we focusing on?
Changing the way you look at things. And I went to a trauma rehab for a short program in Arizona. And that was when I started to realize that I was not even within the trauma world. I was a standout. And that helped me to sort of, I'm not just like a one-off. This is like a big deal. I have a lot of trauma. And it was suggested at that time that there was some family members that I stopped communicating with because I was severely disassociating and derealizing when I would even try to role play. It wasn't good. And then I was just led on this whole journey. So Kundalini, acupuncture really helped me. I had a acupuncturist for a long time named Jeannie Kang. She really helped me with the shroud of shame that I saw. The first time, I'll just say this and then I'll stop with my list.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you an interesting thing that happened. I went to Jeannie Kang. My friend Kate was a bit of an Eskimo for me with all of this. She took me to my first Kundalini class, and she said, I'm going to go see my acupuncturist, Jeannie Kang. And I was like, oh, I have a thing in my back. I need to go see her too. So I went, and she was like, oh, we're not working on your back. You have a huge energetic block right here. And it was funny because I had always had a lot of stomach problems my entire life. And it was just sort of like, why me? Women's problems, stomach problems, like everything from the boobs down didn't really seem to work very well. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so I was under her pins. She put me, under all these pins. And it was like my soul sort of lifted up while my body was pinned down. I could feel the shift in energy. And I said, I wonder if that pain, if that energetic blockage is there since my childhood, what could possibly keep it there? Because I was, in my early 40s. What could possibly keep it there? And on my life, I saw white, almost like a light fog completely surrounding me, and it said shame.
Wow.
And I was like, oh.
Wow.
So, I think that there's so much to shame. It's not been a big part of I just sort of left it, and I just keep moving forward. I've had so many different healing modalities and gifts come into my life through this. But I will say that the shame and the guilt aspect of healing is so vital. A lot of it is because it's energetic, which is one of the reasons why I have this incredible Maori healer, Shari, in our program. She's my Maori healer. She's my healer. I call her, she's the healer. That's what she does. And she's been very helpful in just sort of stripping away all of the outside stuff, changing, the energies. And also, like in foster care, there's so much energy. It's very negative. It's like prison, but different.
Right.
Because prison has that testosterone, energetic smell to it, but these are kids.
Yes.
It's really bad. It smells like abandonment and neglect.
Right.
And it's really bad. And they're just surrounded with confusion and shame and guilt that they don't have. And by the way, can you imagine being 8 years old and you have no idea what the hell happened to your life and how you're in this internment camp with a whole bunch of strangers with tons of trauma, and someone gets mad at you because you didn't put the soap back the way you were supposed to? And that happens every day, all day long. And you have so you're internalizing so much guilt and responsibility that you already have a truckload of. It's really unconscionable what happens. And I know, we've talked about it a little bit about the questions, and we're going to get to some of the changes that can be made in foster care. But I got to tell you, anybody who's living under any kind of delusion that foster care is even remotely a good place needs to go to just go to the level 4 group home at San Dimas. You don't have to go to the lockdown psychiatric ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. You talk about guilt and shame, and those are these children are living in that energy and surrounded by that energy. And those are traumas that you can't see, and they're intangibles. So they're not always they're not always even conscious. You don't really, they come out in ways where, express themselves in different ways in your life where you can't always catch them. So what were some of the healing modalities around guilt and shame that really helped you kind of sort those out?
Well, the recognition through acupuncture that it was something that was binding me. I know that now that there's a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. I haven't actually read it because I lived it. I get it. I know it's true. You're right. But it wasn't really until 2016 when I started to do deep work around how my life had been affected by other people's sexual addiction, sexual addiction, and looking at. There's two sayings I always had as an adult, as a child. Like, I kept feeling like I was waiting for my parents to come and pick me up, that I'd missed the bus after school and I was sitting on the curb, but it had been like 40 years. And I had a real resistance I was resentful. I think, like almost anyone who's had a traumatic childhood, very resentful that I had to, as an adult, reparent myself. Or parent myself. Never mind reparent myself, just even parent myself. I was mad. I wanted my childhood back. I wanted a do-over for the childhood, and then today would be different.
Right.
And it was.
And you're out there trying to find that, which leads you into really unhealthy situations in relationships.
Well, yeah, and it was just like, for me, it was like so unconscious. I just was so mad. It didn't even register of any kind of consequences. I was living pathologically. And, but so then when I finally gave up that ghost in 2016 and was like, nobody's coming. You can kill yourself, or you can create a new life for yourself. If you want to go, have at it. No one would blame you if they knew. If they knew your story, no one would blame you. You can go. But I just kind of, there was a couple of things that happened, and I just was like, I'm going to go fighting. I have to go fighting. So I committed to this path. And in there came having to heal a lot of my shame and my guilt. And how I did it, I don't know. I mean, Byron Katie's app is amazing. It's called The Work. It just helped me to start to question everything. Because there was a time in like 2014 where I was driving along and I sent a tweet to someone I knew, but who's very successful. And I was so afraid that the tweet would be misinterpreted that I flew into a panic attack, had to pull the car over, and became instantly suicidal. Wow. And I was like, so that's where I was. And I had to start to kind of go, like, is it true? Is it absolutely true? Mm-hmm. Is it possible that it's not true?
Yes.
What would it look like if it wasn't true? And how would it feel if it wasn't true?
Got to fact check those thoughts.
And so for the first couple of years, it was fact checking the thoughts on the side of the road in the midst of a panic attack, just so I could get to the next light. And now I kind of do it all the time. Yeah. And whenever there's a thought that makes me look bad, or that isn't feeding into, I'm an innately highly intelligent person whose body and psyche are extremely wise, who are constantly working to transform me, and through that transformation, an aspect of it is heal my trauma. Anything other than that gets a box. We gotta talk. We don't have to talk right now, but we're gonna talk later. And I'm gonna look at it. And if I have to meditate first, if I have to have a hot salt bath first, if I have to go for a hike and sit down on a tree, or be in the sun, let the sun hit the top of my head, or if I have to go to the ocean and just get some negative ions in my lungs, if I have to pray or talk to a friend or call a counselor, whatever I have to do to get to the place where I can be safe enough to be quiet enough to hear what's the alternative thought, that's what I do.
And
And
that's so powerful.
that's what we are bringing. That's what we're going to bring for these kids.
Yes, you're going to give them I mean, these tools, these life skills and tools to first set your intention, set your vision for yourself and who you are and your highest and greatest vision. And then, like you said, any negative thoughts that pop in, to first stop and be aware of them and be able to hear them and have the awareness, but also be like, well, you don't line up with the vision I set for myself and the highest and greatest vision of myself. And I mean, those tools are imperative. And you've also told me about some really deep shadow work you've done. And I've never understood shadow work fully until you shared your journey with me. And it's so profound how you worked through healing your inner child. Can you share with us a little bit about that? Because I feel the way you visualize things and the way you process things, it's such an extraordinary example of the power of doing this deep inner healing work.
Well, thank you. And yes, I can. And also, just to go back for a second to something you said, Christy, I just want to be super clear. I never had a vision for myself as someone else other than, who I was. Any of that insight, any of that, oh, I'm really wise. Oh, wait, there's something really innately intelligent. I'm like a healing machine now. And everything that happened in my life perfectly fits into these things that I'm great at and my life's purpose and my life's mission. And that came from as a result of this. That came as a result of learning who I was by being around people that were better than me, people that mirrored, or maybe not mirrored, but modeled good behavior, integrity. I had an experience with one of my teachers years ago where he did something that had so much integrity, and I felt so safe. And it's the first time in my life I've ever felt that safe in the presence of another person, because I could tell that they saw me for who I was, but they weren't taking it. And I've had that from a couple of friends where people love you enough to tell you the truth. And that is what the boundaries and the integrity that people modeled for me is what gave me the safe place to start to look at who I could. Wait, if I'm that good, then maybe there's something I'm missing. And then once I started to do the really deep intimacy and vulnerability behavior, uh, intimacy and vulnerability work, that's when I started to not take anything from anybody anymore. Nobody gets to tell me how to speak anymore. Nobody gets to tell me how I am anymore. Well, they can tell me, but I'll go home and think about it. And if it doesn't fit for me, then if it doesn't resonate as true for me or helpful for me and a way to advance my life, that I won't, I'll just hand it back. But so, yeah, the shadow work, yeah, it came from, I think, getting rid of the first few layers, to my body. David Elliott breathwork really helped with that, as did Kundalini yoga. Getting my body to a place where it had processed enough of the physical blockages of trauma. And also, I had a chiropractor for a while who did something called network that literally just takes the energy blocks, and opens them up. And then I would feel like I just had so much more energy. So I really spent a lot of time unblocking the energetic knots in my body. And then once that was released enough, then the other trauma.
So it's like these layers. You got to get
it's 100%. There's so many layers. And then, as we've discussed, then it becomes quantum at a certain point where you're not even conscious anymore of what layer it is that's working. It's like the healing starts to work you, and you're just a big healing machine. You don't have to really put that much energy into it, other than just staying conscious and aligned as best you can, which I do. But so the shadow work, the biggest one, I want to be conscious of time too, but the biggest one that I had was around, it's been ongoing, through hypnotherapy, through so many things, just learning and really the intimacy and vulnerability stuff too. Like just not being afraid to look at my part and stuff was a big start. Well, wait a minute. That person was really horrible and they did a lot of things wrong. But did I have any part in it? Well, that's really uncomfortable to look at. I can't. It's so much easier to just align with the victim stance. You have so many friends if you're in the victim camp. And then, but what didn't resonate with me, how I found out I had victim mentality, because I'm like a fighter. I never would have thought that, was I was blaming a lot of people. And I was like driving down our street one day and I was like, I'm blaming a lot of people. I was like, you know what that means? I'm like, what? It means you're a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm no victim. Well, if you're blaming people, you're a victim. And I was like, oh, that did not, that's not how I imagined myself to be. I saw myself as like such a cool person and so tough. But so over time, just getting less and less scared to see the truth about myself. That's such a lie. It's such the man behind the curtain, from the Wizard of Oz, of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That idea that I can't look at my part in stuff, that idea that I can't see my faults. And when you're being beaten every day or criminally neglected every day and it's you or them and you're in survival mode, no, it's true. It's really life-threatening to be rational and calm and vulnerable in the presence of someone who is not safe.
Absolutely.
So yes, but I guess maybe as an adult, I was able to just start and with a lot of healing and knowing that I was supported by different teachers, I was able to start to go in there. And the biggest time I had was with my separation anxiety, because no matter how far I'd gone and how long I'd been doing this great healing work, what ended up happening for me is I found a great group of people that I loved. I had have a wonderful community through my temple. And which was an incredible experience that we were also bringing to fostering care as well, because we want that community. The Jewish community from my temple has helped heal other layers that I didn't have, growing up in secrecy. When you're physically abusing your children and criminally neglecting them, you move a lot. There wasn't, you don't have a lot of people over. It's
Right.
not a big, in
There's
my
no
family.
community.
Huh?
There's no community.
So that really helped me to start to see where, to see things I needed to work on it. And, I have weaknesses there, and that's interesting. But the bad part was that every week when I would drive home after having such incredible intimacy and connection, I would become suicidal. And so that was really my bottom with shadow work, where it was every single week that I would become just overwhelmingly suicidal on the drive home.
You'd have these amazing community.
Yes, I had a good time.
And then you'd leave and that affected you.
Yeah, and it almost like any rational person would say, stop going.
Right.
But I knew I had to push through it. And I tried a couple of like little stopgaps, like calling a friend who had just recently lost her husband, but it wasn't helping. I was suicidal and I had to deal with it. It wasn't the suicidal part. It was the pain. It was the excruciating pain in my heart. And so what I did was I was like, all right, I'm going to go there. And so when I got home, I made a commitment to go inside, and I started to go down, and I went inside. And what I saw in there was just a tiny little child in a hole. It reminded me of Silence of the Lambs. But at the top of the hole, not unlike Silence of the Lambs, was what appeared to be a serial killer that was all wrapped up like mummified. And they were the guard of the little child. And I realized that's where my rage had come from, because I had a fair amount of not only, anger and healthy rage, but also, violent rage at different times that concerned me. My lack of health in the area of interpersonal relationships and my lack of health around my rage were big concerns. And I knew that if I didn't curtail it, I was going to end up in prison. So I had some incentive, but it just seemed like I don't know I don't know how.
Yeah.
How do you fix that? Is there a hospital for that? I don't know. So when I went down inside and I saw this person who identified as like a serial killer guarding this little child, I realized that's where my rage was. My rage was this guy, this protecting her, and no one was ever going to get near her. He was really scary. And so what I started to do, and I don't need to say this, but just in case someone's listening and they're like, what? I just want everyone to know that I spent my whole life I will never refer to anything as an inner child. I am not that guy. I wouldn't even meditate for most of my life because I thought I was for hippies, and I hate hippies. That's what my mom was a hippie. Anyway, you never know. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, I just made a commitment to her to kind of free her, but I also had a lot of respect for him and a lot of gratitude. And that's how I released that part of me, is I just made a commitment to go down there every single day I couldn't stay more than a hot second for the longest time, because it felt like he was going to kill me. There was so much rage there and so much terror with her. It was like, this is above my pay grade. But I just did it. And I went down every day inside, got quiet. I'd go inside and I would visualize this serial killer next to this little girl. And I would just say, sorry to bother you. I know you got a lot going on. I just want to thank you for all you've done, for all the times that you've protected her. You've done an amazing job. I know you're a serial killer. You're probably going to get mad at me, but I'm going to go now. I just want to say thank you. And then I would leave. And then I just kept doing that until one day there was nothing there. And then I just talked to the little girl and was like, hey, kid, looks like you're good. Love you. Do whatever you want. I'll be here. And now what I do, Chrissy, is just, if I leave my apartment like I did this morning and something goes, go back and check the door. I don't think you locked it. 99% of the times in my life, I'd be like, why are you so crazy? Why can't you just be like everybody else? What is wrong with you? Why do you have to think about things so much? Now, even for something as minute as that, I go, absolutely. I'll be right back. And I go upstairs and I check the lock. The door is locked and everything's fine. It's just a matter of attuning to, there's something inside of me that wants something.
Right.
And who am I to say no?
Right.
I'm not my mother. I'm not my father. I'm not my stepfather. I don't have to keep abandoning myself or acting like I'm too much or acting like I'm stupid. It's okay. It's okay. I'm sorry that they couldn't handle me, but I'm not going to repeat that by abandoning myself over and over and over again. For me today, if I'm driving someplace that I have to be at and there's something inside of me that's just like, I really don't want to go there. I mean, like, let's pull over and have a minute. What is it? What's going on? I really just don't like that person. Why don't you like that person? Well, they're not. Do you not want the job? Really? I don't want the job. I'm afraid that if I don't have the job, I'm not going to get the money. But really, I really don't want the job. Then you know what? We're not going. We'll find another way to make the money.
So wow.
Because I'm all I have. And that's, I think, what we're bringing to the kids.
Yep.
Yes, you are all you have. You are in foster care. You have nobody when you turn 18 years old. You got nobody. And guess what? Whoever you think you have, chances are you don't have them. But you get to have yourself.
Yep. And you got to love, like, that story just blows me away every time I hear it. And you got to love all the parts of yourself.
You have
and respect all the parts of yourself. No matter if you are a serial killer that looks like a mummy. You have to be thankful. You were thankful for that. That serial killer protected you for so many years. I mean, it's such a powerful story whenever I hear
You,
it.
you know, Christy, I got to tell you something. It's the strangest thing. But being at that temple, this is not an advertisement for that temple, but it kind of is. And it's all connected. It's all an ongoing quantum healing experience with teachers and leaders and this whole path and healing and daily and mistakes and, you know, flaws and faults and everything else. But I started going to this Torah study, and this group of people, like there's like scientists and lawyers and stuff. And I was like, oh, they're just inviting me because I'm Canadian or something. I'm a convert. It's like a goyim thing that they're just being nice to. It's like it's like a mitzvah or something. And they started to talk to me, and then when we would discuss Torah, they would always kind of go like, Angie, what do you think? And then I would say something, and they go, oh wow, yeah, beautiful. And then they'd be, after the next week, they'd be like, go to Angie, like, Angie, what do you think? And I started to go like, what's going on here? This is very strange, because I've been told that I was stupid,
Right.
that I was annoying, that I was trouble, that I was difficult many times over as a child. And all of a sudden, like literally stupid all the time. And I was like, wait, if I'm not stupid, then what else am I?
Right.
Who am I? And what
Right.
am I? You're not. And I'm going to tell you something. There's no such thing as a stupid kid.
Yes.
And
And
there's
that's what
as
your
a bad kid.
that's what your school is going to be giving to these children, this environment where they are heard, and that's going to support them. And the way your temple supported you and made you, whoa, okay, I'm not all these bad things.
100%. 100%. And you really, it's amazing when you start. There's a lot of programs in place. There's some 12-step fellowships in place that start to address some of that stuff too. But just, that what if we're all human beings with our own path of trauma and mistakes and healing, and that our job, as I see my job here, my job is actually, I don't heal my trauma because I got a, wah, wah. I heal my trauma because that's how I feed the divine.
Yes.
What if my actual purpose, what if every human being's purpose on earth, I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm just extrapolating based on my own experience, which often has a truth to it. What if our purpose here is we come with these bag of horrible events and character defects and all of these things, and our job is to see them and to transform them and become joyful, and through that experience we enhance the energy of earth, the universe, and by doing that we enhance the energy of ourselves, we enhance the energy of the divine. What if that's actually the metaphysical purpose for humanity? And so by having trauma, we're just got like the kit.
Yep. And we're gonna along that same line, by having extra trauma, we're creating an even bigger spark of that energy.
Yes. 100. See, yes, that's exactly right, babe.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what I want to bring to these kids too. Do you have any idea how special you are?
Yes.
You came locked and loaded for one of the most
transformation. You're going to have an incredible, and transformation is going to make this world an even better place the bigger the transformation.
100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We're healing the healers of tomorrow. We're basically creating and healing, divine enhancing.
Absolutely. And it's going to continue, they're going to continue that lineage because now they're healers. So
exactly.
I mean,
and as we all know, it's quantum.
Absolutely.
So just they'll be healing. Their transformation will impact others' lives. I know it has impacted many people's lives. My friends and my relatives, because I'm first of all, I'm not lonely and sad and drinking myself to death and suicidal, but also I have more integrity. I help other people's days be better just by the mere fact that I'm not constantly sabotaging myself, or I make being alive not look so bad sometimes, whereas maybe before I didn't, in those moments. Not so constant, but I gotta tell you, it is a constant commitment for me now. I got so far down the road of having a life filled with integrity that there was still these old street survival areas in my life that I would maybe not have as much integrity because it served me so well. And I got to a point a couple of years ago where I was like, just stop going to temple and doing all the healing stuff and smoke crack or something, or live in integrity in the other 30%, because it's really, it's not working.
Right.
You gotta let it, you gotta commit.
Yep.
But so, yeah, so
100% of yourself.
What, babe?
With 100% of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least that's the goal, and die trying.
Yeah, it's a daily practice. Now, as someone who's been in the foster care system, if you had the power right now to restructure it and make it better, what would be some of the most important changes that you would make?
Well, I think the first thing that because there's a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I would do is start to hire better people to work in the group homes, and more people. One staff person is not enough for 12, 16-year-old boys, and not if he's sitting in the office with the door shut. I mean, there should be an expose on foster care and the 1 in 4 kids who are on 5 or more psychotropic drugs. But atrocities aside, what I would suggest immediately is start to bring in all of these healing modalities promptly. There's a lot of money that is made through foster care. There's a lot of people who are coming home with a weekly paycheck because of these 400,000 children. And if we could just maybe shift some of that towards actually giving the money to them, in the idea of like yoga, breath work,
right,
real nature,
like healing,
camping, and NLP and connection and community, and yeah.
But it's kind of like, it reminds
healthy food.
Right.
I interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just had a thought about how you were talking about it's similar to prison, and that's my issue with the prison system too. Prison doesn't rehabilitate, it houses. And it sounds like that's what the foster care system too. It's not rehabilitating, it's just housing, and it's perpetuating.
100%. It's 100% trauma. It's housing, but because they're children, it's actually criminal neglect. Like, you're not actually allowed to just house a child.
Right.
They have to have healthy food. They have to have care. They're not getting care. They're not getting healthy food. You should go to Starview. Lockdown psychiatric. No, you shouldn't, but you should go. And everyone should go and take a look. It's like something out of, a movie. It's horrible.
Wow. Yeah.
It makes like Shawshank Redemption look like a resort.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds, the school that you're doing, what are your future goals with this? Because it sounds, this is something, your school needs to be in every city. It needs to be,
that's what we want,
hand in hand and lockstep, integrated part of every foster housing communities. I don't know what they're called, but every foster care home, it should have a branch of it as your healing school?
Yeah, we certainly could do like go to every city and with the aging out demographic, the 18 to 21-year-olds in every city. But I want to do it here in Los Angeles and start to, like, the first couple of years of kids that go through our program, looking for the ones that want to, that stick, looking for the ones that want to continue this, bringing them back in as teachers as soon as possible so that they can start to train with the other teachers so that they can become, really, so that their healing and their teaching skills can also become holistic. And then as we expand, they'll become the leaders. They'll become the people that hire the other Kundalini teachers in the other cities because they know what to look for. They know the lineages. They know, all of that stuff because they've been studying it with great teachers. And the same with acupuncture. I know Russell Brown is just starting his acupuncture training school. And there's so many people now that are becoming teachers. And it would be great to have our kids really immersed in this moment in time where we have so much access to so much information on, there's so many people on YouTube even that have saved me and helped me. I've learned so much in my dark night in 2016. Ross Rosenberg videos saved my life. Learning, doing these really intensive codependency immersion programs. Just, yeah. I mean, I was very rigid and very resentful and very resistant to doing this work. But now that I've seen how it transforms my life, I don't have the stigma attached to it anymore. The only thing I still have is my street nose for authenticity and integrity. And now I'm sure, like you, I can tell by the vibration of the person's voice if they're a teacher that resonates with me. And it's it feels like it gets thinner and thinner. There's fewer and fewer options. But then what happens is I realize there's just I haven't broken through to the next level. And then I find all these other people that
Like you say, it's not linear, it's quantum. So it's this follow your yellow brick road.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Now, for those who'd like to learn more about Foster Caring Healing School or want to be part of donating to it and helping these children, where can we find you and where can they do that?
Well, thank you. And thank you for holding space for me to tell parts of my story. And which I usually tell, I'm usually an emotional speaker more than a linear speaker. So I appreciate you holding space for me for that as well. And I love and adore you. And fosteringcare.org is our website. You can learn a lot about the program. We have all kinds of videos with all our healers. There's so much information. There's so many resources. And also we have a donate button. And on the back page, the contact page, you have other opportunities to access us.
Wonderful. I'm going to post links to that below. Before we wrap it up today, do you have any final thoughts or words for any children? Like you said, you've been influenced by those you've watched on YouTube, etc. So for any children who may be watching who are currently in the foster care system or are currently aging out of it and facing uncertainty.
Oh, wow. I'm going to cry because that never even crossed my mind. It's so beautiful. I think the most important thing that I can think of to say in a nutshell is just, you are amazing. You really are. And if I or any, just keep, like you're saying, follow the yellow brick road, trust your instincts. It's all a lie. It's not true. You are not the outlier. You are the diamond, for real, for real. You just don't know yet, but you keep going and you will.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such an honor to have you on, and thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom and really coming on and being vulnerable. And thank you also for your incredible work that you're doing with your healing school. Children are really our future, and it's so vital to get them the help they need. And we definitely need your healing schools in every city. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, darling. Well, we can't wait to have you come out.
Yes, I definitely will come out and check it out.
Yes.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body, the better you're able to stay healthy and prevent disease. And a reminder, I'm not your doctor. Don't take this as medical advice. If you have specific questions about your healthcare, feel free to reach out to your practitioner. If you like this video, please like and share it with others. This information could really help someone you may know, and hit that subscribe button and the little bell to be sure you don't miss out on our future shows. And join us next Wednesday for the next episode of Discovering True Health.